The sicker the normal population, the younger age markers for an absolute level of health. In the last couple of months, maybe also already years, I have been slowly introduced to this idea of health markers represented as an age marker. So the idea is that you compare yourself against the population average, or you compare a given person to the population average. So if I am as fit as an 80-year-old, then that's probably not that good if I'm still 20 or 30. But if an 80-year-old would be as fit, or would be running as fast, or would be, I don't know, whichever metric you take to kind of approximate maybe cardiorespiratory fitness, let it be VO2 max, let it be resting heart rate, then one could say that at least in this regard, in this specific regard, the body of the person performs as well, at least, or the mind of the person, if the person has a brain age of this. But of course there are multiple complications with this, such as how do we establish a marker that includes all of the different aspects? And what then if somebody can run very fast, but he actually has diabetes type 2? What if this happens and this happens? What if somebody can do a certain amount of pull-ups, but he actually has maybe no legs any longer because he lost them in war? So there are these, and of course there are so many aspects of health, it seems, that it is just hard, or it seems hard to grasp them in one number. But nonetheless, the graspability of this concept of biological age is kind of working so well because it captures all of these different things in one number. I get age from Inside Tracker for how old I am according to my blood. I get an age from my gym app and it says how old I am in terms of strength, in terms of flexibility, in terms of cardiovascular health, in terms of metabolic health, and it then gives me an overall biological fitness age. Garmin also does this. It gives me the Garmin fitness age. Now, apart from the kind of fact, one could call this that I have different fitness ages with all of these, at least as of the calculations these companies or services make. One still has to. So apart from this, it still seems like a reasonable concept. But then there is something else which one might. So recently I have been hearing again and again that it seems to be the case that the populations in terms of the US and maybe also in terms of Europe, for example, that they get unhealthier in terms of their metabolic health. Now, I also my own body had to kind of experience. It sounds ridiculous, but I don't know to which extent one could take responsibility for this. Probably I should take responsibility totally for this, as it seems to be the best result in terms of, not the best result, it seems to be the only socially acceptable version of this, that I take full responsibility for this. But nonetheless, I have to also, in then my personal kind of analysis, distinguish different variables that might be out of my control, and then maybe try to control them by maybe avoiding them, for example. So to a certain extent they are out of my control, but also it's not out of my control or in my control, but of course it's maybe something in between. So by getting rid of foods that potentially have a negative impact if I am exposed to them over a long period of time, and by not buying them and by not having them in my home, for example, I can maybe construct an environment in which I am just less likely to eat maybe 10 Snickers because I just don't buy them. Now, of course, also buying the Snickers is already part of the system, and in my case it took quite a lot of time until I had all of these different foods to which I am exposed to when grocery shopping, kind of out of my usual cycle of grocery hauls. Now, back to the population average and the markers. Now, one might say, okay, currently, according to my fitness age, so my current age is chronologically 27 as of now, and my fitness age has been going down to 24. Now, my strength age, for example, is still 30, and I seem to be unable to get it down. But now, if the population gets worse and worse in terms of the health, then one could say, for example, that if I now compare myself against this population average, and the population average gets worse and worse, then one could imagine two scenarios, which is either I have a fixed age and the population gets worse and worse and worse, but then I actually also get worse and worse because the age is me compared to the population average. And the other scenario would that the population average is kind of fixed, but my health is getting worse. So I think I did kind of mix them up. So if I stay at the same biological age, but the population gets worse in terms of the health, then the marker is less and less. So the 25-year-old marker, for example, or the 24-year-old marker is less and less good. But then the other way around would be that my marker is not unchanged now, but it's actually going down because the population average goes down, which would again mean in this case, so it would in this case mean that my health is constant, but my biological age is going down because the health of the population average is going down. And so therefore it seems similar to maybe inflation or also deflation, one would need a kind of overarching standard for long-term comparison of health. But of course then what would one use as the basis for this?